Fantasy Faire Radio and being live streamed on the RFL of SL YouTube channel. Today we visit the incredible world of the 12th Annual Fantasy Faire. Fantasy Faire supports the global mission of the American Cancer Society. To quote from the Fantasy Faire's website, Fantasy Faire 2020 is the largest gathering of fantasy designers, enthusiasts, role players, and performers in the virtual world. From Thursday, April 23rd through Sunday, May 10th, you can treat yourself to shopping, dance, theater performances, DJ parties, auctions, questing, the literary festival, fantasy art, events, and role-playing as thousands of Second Life residents and creators bring their own visions together to support the American Cancer Society's vision of a world without cancer. And that support has been nothing less than overwhelming. Not only has the fair enlightened so many of its visitors to the programs and services and the mission of the society, but it has raised more than $360,000. That's nearly 100 million lindens to support that mission. Let's meet today's guests. Xander Green is the founder of Fantasy Faire, director of programming and events, and the director of Fantasy Faire Radio. Fantasy Faire celebrates imagination, and Xander is part of the collective imagination that created Fantasy Faire. It was Xander, together with Lauren Thibault and Ember Farina, who conceived of Fantasy Faire while part of Friends Fighting Cancer, and has been part of the leadership that has now helped grow for what was a team event into the event we see today. As always, we are honored to be invited to take part in Fantasy Faire and to welcome Xander to our panel. Rox Arton is the owner of Secrets of Gaia and is the producer of the popular Twisted Hunts and events that run 4 times a year. She is a survivor in every aspect of the word and is passionate about relay, as cancer has touched her and her family's lives far too often and far too personally. She and her husband Grogo Tungsten helped design several award-winning relay campsites with the Relay Rockers. She is a 3-time sponsor of Fantasy Faire, and this year the sponsor of Fairlands Junction, the starting point for all journeys into the realms of the fair. Gigi Adagio is a world builder and the creator of Queen's Garden, sponsored by the New Victoria Project. She is a region designer and owner of Savor Serenity. She came to Relay as a way to honor her father, who passed away from cancer 3 years ago. For Gigi, Second Life was a place for her family. Her mother, her father, and her sisters used SL to bridge the distance in real life. Her father loved all of Second Life. And as always, Sandy Loxingly Slate will bring us up to date on Hope Haven and the American Cancer Society in world. And now, before we chat with our Fairlanders, we have something very special. Fantasy Faire recognizes the worldwide impact of cancer in the borderless community that makes up the world of Second Life. Around the globe, the American Cancer Society is the leader in the fight against cancer, and Fantasy Faire is dedicated to the community that makes up the world of Second Life. Today, we are honored to have 3 very special, distinguished guests from the American Cancer Society. They help to form and direct the Society's global mission. Joining us via Skype, I am very pleased to announce and introduce Kristen Solt, Managing Director of Global Alliances, Ambassador Sally Cole, Senior Vice President, Global Cancer Control, and the former Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, and Christy McComb, Managing Director, Global Capacity Development and Patient Support. Welcome to Relay Wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with Kristen. Kristen, our Fairlander, well, first of all, our Fairlanders know Kristen's voice. She's part of the Global Update PSAs that play year-round on both FFR and T1. And she has been with us. This is her second time on Relay Wrap. Kristen, our Fairlanders have been honored to have been part of the Society's mission in Nairobi, Kenya since we last spoke. Can you give us an update on the Hope Hostel in Kenyatta National Hospital and the Patient Navigator program?
Well, I would be pleased to, and thank you, Trader. It is just great to be with you all again this year. Hello, Fairlanders. It's wonderful to be a part of this program again. And just before I start, we are just so incredibly grateful to all of you for your support. 100 million lindens, that's just absolutely amazing, and we're honored to be here today. Well, you asked about the Hope Hostel Project. A lot has happened since we last spoke. And for those of you new to the fair, a little background on why the American Cancer Society is working in Kenya and in sub-Saharan Africa. We're the American Cancer Society. Why are we working in Kenya? Well, just like our audience today listening, cancer has no boundaries. And we all have the resources to address this cancer burden locally or globally. And Sally and Christy will certainly share more of detail on our overall work at the American Cancer Society. So in Kenya, the rates of cancer are increasing. About 30,000 Kenyans are dying of cancer a year. And it's kind of unfortunate, but a diagnosis of cancer usually is considered a death sentence. That's how people see it. So ACS has been working pretty closely with a group of stakeholders now for about 4 to 5 years to improve the outcomes of cancer treatment, including how we address these barriers to care. And I think I've shared this with you before, but believe it or not, there's only one public hospital in all of Kenya that provides all comprehensive cancer treatment. So if you're diagnosed with cancer and you don't have money, and most Kenyans cannot afford private care, they must travel to Nairobi for treatment. Some travel as much as 500 miles just to get to their treatment. And they often arrive with very few resources. Think about it, one hospital in the entire country that treats all cancers. And our work with KNH, that's Kenyatta National Hospital, unveiled that about 30% of the patients that come to KNH choose not to start treatment, or they can't complete it because they don't have any place to stay while they're there in Nairobi and no resources to pay for accommodation. And when we saw patients sleeping on the grounds of the hospital or sleeping in the corridors, we knew we had to do something, and we knew we had a solution, and that was the Hope Hostel. Hope Hostel, and that's how the project was born. So fast forward 3 years, and with your support, with the Fairlander support, with all of Second Life support, and the goodwill of some really prominent Kenyans, the project's really finally coming together. I'm so pleased to share that progress, where we were this time last year, where we are now. So enough funds have been raised. Our architectural designs are completed. We got all the permits from the government secured, which I'm sure you can imagine was a bit of a challenge. But to say the least, we are finally at the doorstep of being able to break ground, and that is just the most exciting news for us as well, and we couldn't have gotten there without your support. I think, too, Trader, when I think about this, that your generosity, the Fairlanders' generosity, has really sparked more commitment from the Kenyans, too. We have this group of Kenyans, prominent Kenyans. They're called the Friends of Hope Hostel. They knew about your gift. They knew about the Healing Garden. They came together to really say, we've got to get this project done. And what is so exciting about this philanthropy is a pretty new idea in Kenya. It's not the same as it might be in the U.S., but to have some prominent Kenyans come together on a fairly public project is quite a big deal. And when they did come together, the plans changed a bit. When I spoke to you last, the plans for the hostel were to have 70 beds for caregivers and patients to stay in while they were there during treatment. Well, because of your generosity, because of the generosity of our Fairlanders here and the group of Kenyans, we've been able to double the size of the hostel, and now it will have 156 beds. So that is the best news. We went from 70 to 156, and you're part of that. You helped us get there. And what that means is that so many more Kenyans obviously will be able to have treatment and not worry about where they're going to sleep. And because of this generosity, the hostel will also be able to offer meals and counseling services, which is really, as we can all know, is so much a part of the healing process. And we know that from our work here in the U.S. with our Hope Lodges, that when you remove that barrier or have that worry about where you're going to stay and where your meals are going to come from, then you can focus on your treatment. And we know that this hostel will mean that more Kenyans will get treatment, stay in treatment, and finish their treatment and recover. And that's what we want to see have happen through this Hope Hostel. I would say also that this healing garden that you have supported is very much still a part of the designs and will really be that place for respite and healing for the cancer patients, and even sometimes more importantly, the caregivers, that they can get outside and have a place of comfort and respite. So still a very important part of the project, and we're so grateful that you've chosen to support such an important piece of the Hope Hostel. You know, we say it's not just about the building, it's about what happens inside the building. And it's what happens outside the building, too. And I think that's why the Healing Garden is such a critical part of this. So the timeline for groundbreaking has changed a bit just because of COVID-19. We still hope to break ground a little bit later this year, hopefully this summer. And then the project will take about a year or so to complete after that. Oh, and one more update. Some of you may have seen a short video from Dr. Esther Manoro. She's been our champion at K&H for all of our work, and in part because of her work on the hostel, she was awarded the Order of the Grand Warrior by the President of Kenya. And I thought that was just, I wanted to share that with you. And I spoke with her last week, and she joins me today in thanking each of you for extending your heart and caring about the people of Kenya, caring about people outside your borders, people you will never meet. So that's the end of my update. Thank you for helping make the Hope Hostel a reality. We can't wait for you to join us virtually at the groundbreaking, and you're with us every step of the way here, and we're so grateful to have your support.
Kristen,
so thank you.
Kristen, thank you so very much. Christy, you are part of your realm, to stay in Fantasy Faire character, is patient support. Now, part of the monies that were raised, particularly money from the 2018 Christmas Expo, was directed specifically to patient navigation. And how is that going?
Yeah, well, thank you. I also just want to express my appreciation for everyone here today and your support for our work. And of course, it's my first time, so really excited to be with you all. But the program has grown. The program, as you know, was launched in 2017, and I'll just give you a few highlight numbers. We have the Kenyans have navigated over 6,000 patients since the launch of the program, and just 4,000 last year alone. So we've been continuing to build as the need grows. More and more people are coming, unfortunately, with cancer. The hospital is trying to meet that need, so they've put increased numbers on the navigators. And so last year we had a big bump in the number of folks navigating patients, and that's again thanks to your support and some other support that we've received. And so we now have about 20 people on the team that are meeting with patients, and not only are they meeting with patients and having some very critical educational sessions to help patients understand their cancer diagnosis, they're having more encounters with them through their treatment journey, and we're serving more clinics within the hospital. So it's been tremendous growth and real excitement within the hospital. And I think, the numbers are one thing, which are just truly tremendous. But the thing that's changing and what's so exciting, I think, also with the Hope Hostel is there's a new way of working at Kenyatta National Hospital. And the patients even say to the doctors and the nurses and the navigators, everyone, warned us about coming to Kenyatta, that you're going to get lost, that no one's going to help you. It's a very scary place. And we are going home to tell everyone that is not the experience that we had. And that is really the patient navigation program that's really changing the culture of treatment of patients and even other departments. This is a hospital that serves every disease, right? Not just cancer, but even other parts of the hospital are taking note of the navigation program and really noticing what a difference it's making and really changing it into a patient-centered experience. So it's been really wonderful. I can't say more about it right now, of course, with COVID-19. As in many places, treatments have had to be scaled back, and it's only emergency treatment. The navigators, there's less of them currently working, but more of them are doing phone navigation and supporting patients who are back home and are not able to come in for treatment. So they're adapting to the situation, and as we all are, but they're ready, to get back to work.
Thank you, Christy. That was Christy McComb. Um, it, it's so wonderful to hear, and I know the Fairlanders are just so excited to see the results of all their hard work and volunteerism here in Second Life. Um, Ambassador Cole, Sally. I told you my father wouldn't let me
Yep.
address you as anything other than ambassador. Uh, beyond Kenya, the society is active around the globe. Can you tell our listeners about the ways the society is fighting cancer in all of the countries?
Well, thanks, Traeger, and like my colleagues, I want to thank you and all of the others involved in this wonderful program. It's truly exciting and so relevant, and even more important this year. The whole world has sort of adapted to virtual reality, and you guys have been leading the way for 12 years. So it's really fantastic, and I just want to, before I say anything about what we're doing to fight cancer around the world, I want to thank you for that. So we are working in a number of countries around the world, and you've heard about some of our work to support patients, such as patient navigation and having a place for them to stay so that they don't have to sleep on the grounds of the hospital. But our programs are even broader than that, because at the American Cancer Society, we really believe that where you live shouldn't determine if you live. And yet so often that's the case. If we're privileged enough to live in the United States, we may be lucky enough to get treatment, to get it early, to get it at a time when it can actually save our lives. But really, the burden of cancer is shifting to low and middle income countries, and that's where we're working to fight that battle against cancer. In 2018, there were over 18 million people around the world with cancer, and almost 10 million of them died from the disease. And by 2040, just 20 short years from now, these figures will nearly double. And the greatest increase is in low and middle income countries, where more than 2/3 of the world's cancers will occur. In the United States, we've had some pretty good news over time. My brother died of cancer in 1991, and that's one of the reasons why feel myself so privileged to be involved in the fight against cancer. Since 1991 in the United States, we've seen a 30% drop in cancer mortality. In contrast, in low and middle income countries like Kenya, cancer burden and cancer incidence is going in the opposite direction. Today, around the world, 1 in 5 people will have cancer in their lifetime. So we're working at the American Cancer Society, particularly in low and middle income countries where they have fewer resources to fight the disease. And we're working across the entire spectrum of cancer, from knowledge gathering, because knowledge, is power. So from how do you stay healthy? How do you avoid some of the risk factors, such as tobacco, that lead to a greater cancer incidence? We're working in some exciting areas in primary prevention, such as the fight against tobacco, by raising tobacco taxes, because we know that over 20% of all cancers are caused by one single thing alone, and that's by the use of tobacco. We're also working in a number of countries on increasing the access to vaccination. There are a couple of cancers that actually are caused by viruses. The human papilloma virus causes almost all cases of cervical cancer, which is the leading cause of cancer deaths for women in 40 countries. So we are working alongside of partners in those countries to increase access to HPV vaccination for young girls so that they'll never have to worry about a cancer diagnosis. We're also working extensively in 13 countries in Africa to improve access to chemotherapy and to radiotherapy. Those are two of the important instruments, the tools that we have to fight cancer, and yet they've been not at all available. Fewer than 5% of people in Africa who could benefit by chemotherapy actually receive it. And there are many countries in Africa which don't have a single radiotherapy facility. So we're working in those countries and with local partners on the ground to increase access to these life-saving treatments. And finally, we're working in palliative care because we know that 80% of the people who get a cancer diagnosis are actually diagnosed at very late stages in cancer. And I think about the only thing worse than dying from cancer is dying from cancer in so much pain that you lose all of your dignity and all of your ability to have your last few days of life on this earth of being able to communicate with those whom you love. So we've done a lot of work in many countries to provide access to oral morphine so that people suffering from cancer can end their lives in a dignified way. So we're out there for people. We can only be out there because we have the support of wonderful people like you. And I can't tell you how much that has meant to us and how much of a difference we're making in the world. We're really leading, as you said, Trader, at the beginning, for a world without cancer. And Fantasy Faire is helping to make that possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally. And Kristen and Christy, anything else you would like to talk to our Fairlanders about regarding the global fight against cancer? I'm sure COVID-19 has become so much part of the dialogue and has affected everything. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'd like to just say one thing before turning it back to my colleagues, and that's that just as COVID-19 is a pandemic, so is cancer. There is not a country in the world which is not touched by cancer. And the statistics are enormous, but there are also, we have the tools, we know what to do. And we know that with your help, we can begin to turn the tide on cancer. And that's what we're all fighting for. And I know we're in this fight together. So things like the Global Relay for Life, we want and we know that people are not just thinking about their neighbors and their friends and their fathers and their mothers, but also people across the globe whom they've never met in person, who are facing the same kind of struggles. And we are really all in this together. And I hope if COVID-19 has a silver lining, it will make us understand that we really, truly do live in one world. And that, as I said at the outset, where you live shouldn't determine if you live.
Thank you, Sally. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could turn this huge tide of resources that are fighting COVID, once we get that under control, to actually fighting cancer and maybe end it once and for all?
Yes, it would.
And Trader, I'd like to add something for your audience too about, as Sally said, the Global Relay for Life network. And we consider Second Life part of our Global Relay for Life network. There are 30 countries doing Relay for Life across the world. Second Life's our 31st. So you're part of making a difference across the world through Relay for Life. You just do it in a different place. But you're part of this movement, this family of Relay for Lifers across the world that are dedicated to changing the trajectory of cancer in their countries and in your world too. And it's, as Sally said too, it's more important than ever that we have the Second Life community in lockstep with us in this fight. So I just wanted to share that with your listeners too, that we really do consider Second Life and this group our 31st country because we're all in this together.
Oh, thank you so very much. Christy, Kristen, Ambassador Cole, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been wonderful to get the information you were able to provide. And I think it's going to help to invigorate the Fairlanders and Relay volunteers throughout Second Life to step up and work a little bit harder. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Well, we're honored to have been here, and I can't wait to hear how much money has been raised by the 10th of May as your fair goers find opportunities to support this mission. So thank you all for
Thank you.
what you're doing.
Xander, do you want to add anything? Xander Green, the director of the Fantasy Fair.
What in the world can you add to all of that? Wow, I've been sitting here with just tears streaming down my eyes this whole time. I love the fact that that this community, this extraordinary community of people, 700 people who work this year to make Fantasy Fair possible, and we figure about 20,000 or more will actually come as visitors, and to be able to share the extraordinary the professionalism, the dedication of these three remarkable people who lead the society's battle against cancer on a global level. I was just sitting here thinking, gosh, it's all this magnificent epic tale. It's a quest as epic, as noble as vanquishing cancer, which Fairlanders know as the Unweaver. A quest as such as that. You have to have a fellowship every bit as grand as any you're going to read about in the most grand of tales. It takes professionals like Kristen and Christy and Sally. It takes doctors like Esther Mignaro at the Kenyatta National Hospital, her beautiful work that she does with palliative care with patients there, and the passion and the heart that she brings to that job. And it takes relayers. We are the fuel that is powering the engine that is the American Cancer Society. That's what doctors like Dr. Mignaro are driving to take us all to this destination that we all know we're going to arrive at, that world without cancer. And that's an extraordinary thing to be a part of. I couldn't be more honored than to have the three of them here with all of us today, to be able to share our community. I only wish that we could get you guys a view of what's happening in the world right now, because people are they're loving what you're saying. They're responding with such passion and enthusiasm and gratitude for your coming here and sharing with us this extraordinary good news that what we're doing is making a difference.
Well, Xander, they say that cancer is the great equalizer. It touches all of us. We like to say that Relay for Life is the great unifier, and we are unified with you in this fight.
Well, and as Ambassador Cole said, we're all in this together, and we know that even with this pandemic situation we're facing, cancer patients are among those who, because of their immunity compromised condition, are the most susceptible to disease and to viruses. And so it makes what we're doing now, what's going on in the world right now, it just amplifies the importance of what we're doing here. And the fact that we can do it together, the fact that while the world must be physically distanced, still, we are able to come in here and remain socially connected with one another. We don't have to be socially distant. We can be socially connected even when we are physically distanced. That's what we do in here. That is our specialty. We've been doing this for 15 years in here. The fair's been at it for 12, but Relay for Life has been a community in Second Life for 15 years. So, I keep saying this year, this is what we've been preparing for. This is what we've been getting ready for this whole time, when the world would turn to us and say, we can't carry that baton right now. That relay image of, we're running this race and we're running it together, and I'm running and I've got the baton in my hand and I reach forward confident, knowing that somebody's going to be standing there to take it from me when I run out of energy and I just can't take another step. And that's where we are right now. Our hand has reached back. The physical relay world is reaching forward to hand us that baton. They're looking to us to take hold of it and to run around this track through the dark of the night. And as David Abbott, my dear friend and our good Fairlander and relayer, has said, when we emerge from the darkness of the night that is COVID, and when we stand in the sunshine again together, we're going to be able to hand that baton off to our relay brothers and sisters around the world. And they're going to know that, when they needed us, we were there. And when we need them, they're there. And that's how this whole thing works. That's how you get to a world without cancer.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yes. But again, on behalf of everyone from Relay for Life in Second Life, from all our volunteers, and most importantly from all our Fairlanders, thank you, the three of you, so very much for taking time from your day to spend some time in our world. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, Xander, we're going to talk to our Fairlanders now, our world
Let's do
builders,
that.
and we have Rox Arton, who is the sponsor of Fairlands Junction, and we have Gidget Adagio, who is the designer of Queen's Garden. By the way, I spent some time in Queen's Garden. I have to tell you, I've been through several of the regions. It's gotten quite big this year with the 18 regions, but we've been out at night going through different ones. Queen's Garden is just amazing, Gidget. It is the perception of reality in Queen's Garden is so strong you just almost get lost as you come down towards the beaches or go up the stairs to the hills and the little copses and gardens and areas that you have in there. It's amazing. Well done. Where was your inspiration?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Gidget. That is the name that my grandfather gave me. So and that's a special name. The inspiration, well, everyone now knows that my father passed away from cancer 3 years ago on April 10th. I'm sorry, I still get a little emotional. When I was asked to do a region this year, I felt so honored and blessed. I have been part of the Second Life community for almost 10 years, and the Fantasy Faire is my favorite event. I have been to every single one since the day I discovered it, and I've supported the cause. Little did I know how personal that would become to me. 4 years ago, my father suddenly started losing weight, and I asked him to see the doctor, and that's when they discovered that he had cancer in his liver. But later we would find out when he had a brain aneurysm that the source was actually in his brain, and it was spreading through his body. Every region that I've ever created, I wanted it to be a place where people would come and find some peace, hope. When I started Gaia Calling, my father was there with me, and that region was the most special to me because it helped me when he passed away. He never got to see it finished. So when this time came, and I couldn't believe I was actually going to do a region for the Fantasy Faire, I took some time, and I guess some people would call it I prayed. And I asked God or Spirit, whatever name you give, I asked that they be with me and help me create something that would really be there for the people. Because this is not about what I did. This is not about me. This is not about the region. All of this is about the peoples, every single one. So it is my greatest hope that anyone who visits there walks away with some encouragement, some peace, and some hope. And that's about all I have to say.
Well,
I apologize. I'm feeling a little emotional.
That's okay. Tell us a little bit about the region.
Okay, well, Queen's Garden, when you enter, it's just one big garden. I think it's really chaotically beautiful. It is not really an organized garden at all. It's just, you walk in and there in the center is the Gaia tree, and she represents the source of life, water, the tree of life and hope, and she calls to all of us. She has something to give us. Spread throughout the garden are flowers like forget-me-nots, roses and ivy and lilies, and each one of those flowers represent something, and I don't want to go into too much because it's part of the quest. Yeah, I think there's a feeling of magic in the air, and when it was finished, I just stepped back and was like, wow, look what happened. It, um, it did something to my heart and spirit as well.
Well,
So,
I have to say that Arizona and I visited the other night, and we both found it to be a region of peaceful serenity and with wonderful surprises around every turn in the path and every step you take. We floated in the bubble and we climbed to the top and we followed the stairs and we came down to the beach. And every time we turned around, um, Arizona especially would turn and say, "Oh look, oh look." I must have heard it 100 times while we were in that region. So thank you so very much for giving us your gift of Queen's Garden.
thank you. I'm glad you discovered the bubble.
Oh yeah, we floated all over. They were great.
Wonderful.
The best
Thank
part
you for
was
doing
there was a troll standing in the middle of the pond for the whole time we were there, and we tried to avoid him.
You know, Trader, one of my favorite moments of the fair this year was standing just a couple of hours after we opened and zipping around and checking on things and standing on Queen's Garden. And was one of those just only at the fair moments. A dragon flies by with a tiny on his back and both of them said hello to me as they were flying by. So that moment standing there at the top of the highest point of Queen's Garden and having that short little moment to connect with two Fairlanders as they flew through and loving it and enjoying it.
Isn't that great?
Just perfect.
Only
Just
at
perfect.
Fantasy Fair can you dance with dragons.
Yeah. The other important thing, I think, as from the fair's point of view, that we want to say about what Gidgee has done there, the Queen's Garden is the home of the Fairlands Quest for this year, and that story this year is called The Bard Queen's Garden. And of course, people who know the fair's mythology know how important the Bard Queen is to the overall story of the Fairlands. She is a mythical figure, a fictional figure, but it is she who kind of interprets the magic of the fair for all of us, and that's what the quest every year is about. Our Fairlands Junction draws the regions together, but Junction's reasons for doing so are always difficult to, somewhat ineffable. They're difficult to understand, and it's the Bard Queen's role to interpret what Junction has done for us so that we can understand it. And the other thing that's important about that is that there was a storyline with the Bard Queen herself a few years back in the quest in which it was made clear that she herself is a survivor. She has come through, battled a terrible illness, and through the love and support of her friends and families and a lot of really powerful professional support, she was able to overcome her affliction. And when I go there into Queen's Garden, what I see that Gidgee has done is to create a world that is a tribute to the memory of someone personal to her that she's lost. And it's also at the same time a celebration of life, and it celebrates the life of everyone who has also survived and come out the other side of their cancer journey. And I think to be able to bring both of those points together thematically in one place that is, just as everyone has said, just unbelievably beautiful. I think what she's done is artistically and in a very human way, just extraordinary. It's true art. It is a work of art, and it's one that you go into and you become a part of.
It absolutely is. And again, thank you, Gidgee, for coming, for joining us today, and thank you for Queen's Garden. It is truly a gift to the Fairlands. Xander, would you do me a favor? Well, I'd like to introduce Rox. And of course, now I've known Rox Orton for many, many years. We were teammates together. Rox is one of the sponsors. And as in a way of introducing Rox, would you explain how important the sponsors are to Fantasy Faire?
Oh man, talk about the founders of the feast. There's a lot of work that goes into building a fair, but we can't even begin that work until we know we can cover all the one and only physical cost we have, which is to hire these regions, to borrow these regions from the lab. That is the only thing that it costs us to make this happen. And if it weren't for sponsors like Rox, Fantasy's in the house, Elizabeth's in the house, and maybe she can tell me. I've lost track. I know there's at least 18 sponsors, but that's just for the regions. Then we have all these event sponsors as well. All told, they wind up contributing more than 2 million lindens. We open the doors with that much money in hand, some of which we hold back to be able to use as matching challenges, which means we even double that again. So their generosity is absolutely legendary. And if they weren't willing to step up and do what they do to say, let me cover that cost so that all of this can come magically into being, so that the world makers can, like Gidget, can come in here and do what they do so beautifully. So Rox Arton is not only an incredibly talented creator in her own right, and a wonderful DJ as well, one of my favorite Fairland DJs to listen spin. Also, an extraordinary generosity of spirit to be able to say, don't worry about it, guys. I'll cover the bill. You just get these regions built so that we can get in here and relay together as Fairlanders.
Rox Arton, the founder and director of Twisted Hunts, and Rox, welcome to Relay Rap.
Thank you.
It's not your first time on Rap.
I'm trying not to cry. Actually, it is, yes.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm so surprised.
No, I tend to, in case most haven't noticed, I tend to try and hide in the background. Wow. Just to clarify, I'm not the founder of Twisted. I was blessed to have it handed off to me by the original founder of Twisted. And I have been doing it much longer than they were around. But, yeah. Anyway.
How does it
now
feel
that you've all made me cry.
How does it feel to be the sponsor of Junction this year?
I think I mentioned this to Xander, actually, and maybe Fantasy. I said, put me wherever you need to Fantasy. And I typically do that because how am I going to pick between all the regions? I just can't. I spend forever reading the descriptions and still just roll dice and whatever. And she said, well, how about this? And I said, sure, I'll take that. And just to be clear, because that's not very clear, I'm a region sponsor, but not on a shopping region. So I have a smaller store, which is fine. And, in the end, I didn't really care which region she had me listed as, but to have Junction, it was kind of special. I was like beside myself because I am very wrapped up in Fantasy Faire. It's my vacation within Second Life. I take the time off. I enjoy. I play. You'll find me one day as a fairy and the next as a dancing piece of wood. So you never know what I'll look like here. And Junction has always been special because of the mythos of the fair. And so when I saw that I had Junction as where I was sponsor, it was very, very special.
Well, you're very, very special to all of us too, Rox. Those of us who have had the opportunity to know you realize that you're a survivor. You're a hard fighter. You've been through some tough times on the real side, yet you're always here working, and you don't let the Unweaver get in your way.
Well, you get stuck only when you get kicked down and you don't get back up. So just keep going.
You have to get back up.
Yep.
Now, what brought you to Relay and to the fair initially?
Relay for Life has always been important to me. So when it was something that I found in SL and I could donate in a way that I didn't have the money in real life to do, I've not always been blessed enough to be able to say, hey, I can do this and let me sponsor a region so that I can make sure this happens. Early on, I didn't have a lot of spare money, and I could do something in world and build some crazy thing and sell it and make money for Relay for Life. So it was a really great thing in my book. But what brought me to Relay for Life originally is that my family has quite a history of cancer. Almost every woman on my mother's side of the family has had cancer and had a hysterectomy before they were 30. I am one of the few that was not in that, but did not get missed. I had prodigal gland tumor, which should have been benign because most of them are, but I don't have that kind of luck, and mine was not. So they found that, and I didn't get missed. I just didn't get the usual treatment from what everyone else in my family has had. So it's touched my world far too much, and it's time we find a cure.
Well, Rox, I can tell you this much from personal experience, and I know that Xander will join me in this, that your being part of Relay and being part of Fantasy Fair is taking us in a long way to finding that cure. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you for so much for all you do for Relay and for the Fairlanders. And thank you for coming on today. Xander, you shared. I'm sorry. Xander, you shared a story with me yesterday, which I found very emotionally touching, and if you wouldn't mind sharing that with everyone today.
Yeah, we were talking about getting everybody set up in here. We go through quite a process to get 275 merchants installed in their shops. That's quite a process, and it takes time to get the regions built, and then it takes time to get all those shops filled and debug the regions, and all of that. It can be at times a very nerve-wracking process, and everybody's always worried about time and how much time we have left. And we were heading into the night before we opened last Thursday. It was Wednesday night. And I got a message from one of our merchants who just said, "I'm worrying I'm not going to be able to get my shop together in time." I said, "Okay, well, what can I do to help you?" And she says, "Well, really nothing, because I just have started a new round of chemo, and it's really knocking me down hard." And I said, "Okay, first of all, don't worry about the shop. Take as much time as you need. Let us know what we can do to help you. But more importantly," we talked a little bit, and I said, "Can you, without being too specific, can you tell me where generally you are in the world?" And she did. And what did I do? I did the most important thing I do around here. I went to cancer.org, and I started doing a little research. And I found some links, and I came back and I shared them with her, and I said, I don't want you to worry about the shop right now. This is what I want you to do. I want you to look at these links. And just look and see, these are things that are there for you, where you are. And she came back the next day and she told me that she'd done that and immediately found support that she needed, including financial support that she had been right then instantly approved for. And I think you could just sense the relief that she was feeling, that maybe this journey that she's on might be just a little bit better, a little bit easier because of that. Just that one link. That's there because we're here. That opportunity to get that support, that exists for her right now. Because for 15 years, for 30 years, relayers have been doing this. For 15 years, they've been doing it in Second Life. For 12 years, they've been doing it at the Fantasy Fair. And the sum total of all that compassion and all that generosity is that when that one person needed a little extra help that one moment in that night, it was there. She didn't have to get through that hardest hour, that darkest night, alone. The society was there for her because we're there for the society. That's how it's the most beautiful feedback loop, positive feedback loop I can imagine. We put our passion into it, and then they're able to put their passion back, and people like her are able to have a little easier time.
It's just one more chapter in the mythos of the Fairlands, that the Unreaver was once again vanquished by the American Cancer Society.
Yep. We wield the sword of the ACS around here, I love the fact that Kristen mentioned Dr. Magnoro being given the Order of the Grand Warrior. I mean, I met with her. I spoke with her a couple of times. That's a very appropriate title for her, let me tell you. Oh, boy. And, like Gidgey and I, Dr. Monaro lost her father to cancer. And when first time we started talking, and we'd already established by email that we had that connection with one another, and I said, I'm so sorry that we have that in common. And she said, I'm not. She said, I know that you know what I feel. I know you know how that feels. When I was flying around the fair, about a week, I guess, before the merchants got in, it was about a week after the World Builders had started setting up, and I just parked myself on Queen's Garden. I'll tell you right now, as soon as Gidget started, I was like, this is going to be something special. I want to watch this go down. And I just kind of parked myself there and just tried to stay out of the way, not get in the way, not, don't bother the busy world maker. But finally, I just had to reach out and say, I got to tell you, hi, I'm Xander, and I'm a huge fan. Your work is amazing. And I said, I get this really strong personal feeling. This is personal to you, and I can feel that coming through so strongly. And Gidget was very open and talked to me about her dad, and I talked to her about my dad. And, the regions are beautiful. Yes, they are, but there's something we build here that's even more powerful. It's even more beautiful than that, and it's those connections that we build with one another. Because that's not virtual. That's not digital.
No.
That's not zeros and ones. That's a human being reaching out and connecting with somebody else. And we can do that not just with people next door. We can do that. We have relayers in here from every country on earth. We had relayers last year who were here working side by side with one another, whose countries were at that very moment engaged in a shooting war with one another. But here we come in and all that falls away, and we come in here and we fight the real enemy, which is the unweaver, which is cancer. And to connect with people like Gidget, like Rox, and like Kristen and Christy and Sally and you, Trader, and Sandy, and what those folks do over at the Hope Haven on ACS Island, and then all of these people here. I mean, literally, all my favorite people in the world are right here, right now. And then my mom, hi Mom, she's in the next room. I can wave it to Mom right now.
Hi, Mom.
So literally, all my favorite people in the world right here. And to come here and to do this. You also see now my secret plan has come to fruition today, Trader, which was my great plan to draw all these metaphorical threads together. Rox Arton, owner of the shop called Secrets of Gaia. Gidget Adagio, whose Queen's Garden region features the Gaia tree. Gaia, of course, the Earth Mother, the symbol for that global connection to the American Cancer Society's global efforts to battle cancer. And that's how we put a tapestry together here in the Fairlands.
Well, the Fairlands once again have astounded everyone who has visited them. When we look at the totals, we are once again astounded at the generosity of the Fairlanders. Currently, by the way, Xander, 16,752.26, or 4,188,064 lindens. I haven't refreshed that in the last few minutes. I know those totals are climbing.
It's up about $200 from there, and I'll give you another one that's really impressive. Right now, current 12-year total for the fair stands at $375,000 US dollars. You said it in the beginning, and it's true. We're knocking on the door of having raised 100 million lindens in 12 years. 100, that's like all of the lindens. 100 million lindens in 12 years is not a bad piece of work.
No, and it's helped the American Cancer Society in a long way to raising, in their instance, in 15 years, 1 billion lindens.
Yeah, all because one man, Gordy Klatt, had an idea.
That's right. And one avatar, Jay Lilly, said, let's take it to Second Life.
That's right. And some of us were very soon coming along after that. And in the beginning, it was like, okay, we're just kind of fumbling along. I don't know if this is how in the world are we going to do this in here? And it's taken us 15 years to figure that question out. But it was so worth it to take the time. What Lily did and what the early leaders of Relay for Life and Second Life saw as potential. Everything that's happened because somebody had a good idea. Gordy had a good idea. 100 years ago, a handful of people, some of them doctors, some of them not, lived in a world in which those cancer rates here in our country were as bad as they are today in Kenya, and nobody would even say the name cancer out loud. They were so terrified of it, nobody would even utter the name of the disease aloud. And they sat down together and they said, we ever going to beat this thing, we got to stop that. We got to get to the point where we're not afraid to talk about it. And people sometimes still are. And that's a big part of what we do here. It's about raising the money, but it's also about raising that awareness that we don't have to be afraid to call it what it is. And the second we do that, that's when we start to take the power back in this situation. Nature is just doing what nature does. It's just cells mutate. And there's not really a guiding hand there that's causing that process to happen or not happen or anything, but that's where we come in. We are the means by which we take control of our own evolution as a species and say, we don't want cancer to be a part of this story of our species anymore. We want that part written out of the story. That's what we can do. That's what we can do together.
Xander, thank you so much. Before we're running out of time, which I'm not surprised, I do want to take a moment or a few moments here to talk to Sandy Loxingly-Slate with an update from Hope Haven at the American Cancer Society right here in Second Life, your very own office right here in Second Life. Sandy?
Hi, Trader. Hi, everybody.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Yes, we have a few updates, and we've been talking a lot about the global outreach, and of course, pretty much everything we do at Hope Haven serves all of the residents of Second Life. We don't question where you are in the globe, around the globe. We just want you to come in, and if you have a question, and if we can give you an answer or help you, like what Xander did last week with one of his merchants, that's what we do all the time over at Hope Haven. And we have support groups for survivors and caregivers that are open to everybody, anybody who's been touched by cancer. We count a cancer survivor as anyone who has heard the words, "you have cancer." And our cancer caregivers can be physical caregivers, but they also can be emotional and virtual caregivers, because there's a lot of us who are caregivers here in Second Life for people. We can't physically be there with them, but we provide a huge emotional support to them while they're going through their treatments or even the aftermaths, because as those of us who are cancer survivors know, it's like the side effects and the things, there's always something that comes back that was linked back to your cancer or to your treatments. And real quick, earlier in the show, we were talking about the COVID virus and the impact it has had on around the world. It's also impacted some of the services that are available through the American Cancer Society right now. As of March 27th, the Hope Lodges were closed to cancer patients and their caregivers. Some of the Hope Lodges have been repurposed to house healthcare workers that are working at the hospitals to take care of COVID patients. So please continue to support and donate, because we are using Hope Lodges. We've just kind of passed that baton over to, we're like was referenced, that we are still fighting, even though right now the focus is on COVID. Our cancer resources are still there, and our cancer patients are on the front lines of being some of the most vulnerable, so we want to protect them. And because of that, we've also suspended Road to Recovery. But now, if you need you need to get to treatments, even though a lot of the treatments have been postponed or they've made adjustments to your treatment schedule and things like that because of the virus. You can still always call the 24-hour helpline 7 days a week. Reach out to them at 1-800-227-2345. Talk to a cancer specialist. There's live chat available Monday through Friday. And I always forget those hours when I'm talking. And you can also, a new feature that they've done is have video chat. You can set up a video chat appointment with one of the cancer specialists. So they're trying to, as in the American Cancer Society, is trying to make sure that everybody still has what they need, even during these times that are just so uncertain right now. It's not normal. You already know when you have cancer, it's not normal anyway. Normal goes out the window if you're dealing with cancer, whether it's a patient or a survivor or a caregiver. As soon as you hear the words, or no matter which end you're on, normal just ceases to exist. But American Cancer Society is still trying to help us maintain as much as we can. Now, with all that being said, there have been some changes and some new, exciting new things that have happened. The Reach to Recovery program, which is for breast cancer survivors, which we mainly focus on in October, but Reach to Recovery has expanded their services. They have a brand new website called reach.cancer.org, and they have apps for Apple and Android devices where you can connect with a mentor who has had your similar cancer and treatments and who knows it closer to what you're going through, and you can talk to them, and it's kind of like you can get matched with a fellow survivor who knows what it's like to be in your shoes and can help you on your path. And we can do that all online now. And soon you will be able to reach out to Reach to Recovery right here in Second Life over at Hope Haven Main Resources Building, where the displays are. We're going to have a dedicated display for Reach to Recovery, and there'll also be information in the support building. And switching back over, talking about relay, because we are in the midst of relay season. This is for all Second Life cancer survivors, cancer caregivers. And I've already told you that counts everybody who's ever heard the words "you've had cancer." We still are looking for your photos and your mini bios. And if you need that information, you can reach out to me or any of the moderators. You can just click on our online indicators over at the support building on Hope Haven, or at Hope Haven on ACS. We are also, something new this year, a lot of years you hear us talk about why you relay, and everybody has their reason why they're here. We want to hear because you relay. We want to give thanks back to, because you relay, I was able to get a ride to treatment. Or because you relay, I was able to talk to a cancer specialist. Or because you relay, I've found support here in Second Life through the support groups, or whatever, however you've been touched because of relay. We want to hear that. And we have a card. It's gone out into the support groups. You do not have to be a member of any ACS related groups to participate in any of the activities that are for survivors and caregivers at Hope Haven. And of course, registration for the Honor Lap is open, and we do have the special 2020 commemorative survivor pins, the Relay for Life survivor pins that you can still order if you haven't gotten yours yet. And I think that's about it. I'm trying to talk fast, and I know I'm going to forget something.
That's all right. Sandy, thank you. No, that was a great update. I'm really excited to see about the new REACH program and all that's available at American Cancer Society. If you have any questions, just teleport over there, wander around. There's so much information, so many resources, and help. Wow, it is hard to believe that we're actually past an hour. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody. We've been recording today's show, and it and many of our past Relay Raps will be available on the Relay Rap archive. There's a new location. It's at t1radio.com if you haven't checked it out. We found probably about 80% of all the old Relay Raps going all the way back to 2013. And we have them there for you if you'd like to hear them. Today's will be up there later this evening. I want to thank today's guests, Ambassador Sally Cole, Kristen Solt, and Christine McComb from the American Cancer Society, who took time out from their Sunday afternoons to join us. Rox and Gidgey, of course, thank you so much for everything you did here at the Fantasy Fair and continue to do in our Second Lives. Sandy, thank you. Xander, always a pleasure. I'm always honored and sometimes awed to be sitting next to you here. Thank you for including us once again at Fantasy Fair, and thank you and all the world builders for bringing us this wonderful event every year. I'm just so glad to count you among my friends.
Well, we feel the same way, and we're grateful to have the support of the entire Relay for Life community, and the entire Second Life community really turns out and really says, I'm here to help. I'm here to put me to work. I'm here to get a job done. And we've raised about 150,000 lindens in this kiosk right here this afternoon.
Oh, I know, it's amazing. I just updated, and since we came on the air, let me do it one more time here because I want to get an exact number. Since we came on the air, almost $800 have been raised in the last hour.
We are right now running 24 hours ahead of the 2019 total. COVID-19 and the anxieties that people feel, that's not slowing this relay down. In fact, indeed, the trends would seem to be, the data seems to suggest that what we're doing is we're lapping ourselves in terms of our history here. We are right now exactly where we were on the first Monday of the fair last year. That's 24 hours ahead of schedule, and that's good news.
Well, congratulations on that, and thank you again to everyone at Fantasy Faire. I want to thank Tara Toussaint, who's our producer. I want to thank New All Americas and Bain, who have been recording this for us. And lastly, but most of all, certainly not the least, the Fairlanders and Relay volunteers, whose passion and dedication year after year help to support the mission of the American Cancer Society to save lives, celebrate lives, and lead the fight for a world without cancer. Until next time, go Relay. Goodbye, everybody.
Your American Cancer Society is here to help answer your questions, to connect you to the resources you need, or to just listen. Call us for information, day-to-day help, and emotional support. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we can help you through every step of your cancer journey. Visit cancer.org or call us at 1-800-227-2345 anytime, day or night.